Lindsey Graham. And Mr. Chairman, there is a list in front of me of the people that the GOP want to call down to testify in these public hearings this upcoming week. They include Devin Archer, former board member of Burisma Holdings. They include Nellie Orr, former contractor for Fusion GPS, as well as others like Hunter Biden, former board member of Burisma Holdings. Are you planning on calling anyone to testify in front of your committee?
Well, the person I'm going to call in front of my committee will be Horowitz, who investigated the FISA warrant abuse, the counterintelligence investigation of the Trump campaign. This is all about State Department. The Foreign Relations Committee and the Senate has jurisdiction over this. But let me just say this. If the House Democrats refuse to go down the road and looking into whether or not the reason the prosecutor was fired is because he's getting too close to Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and his team stepped in, that is a legitimate inquiry, and I'm hoping that Chairman Risch, if the House refuses to call Hunter Biden and other people related to that in the House, that we would call them in the Senate, because that may be the only place you hear the other side of the story.
So in other words, if the House Democrats fail to do their job, you are going to do it. You are going to call these people down to judiciary.
Yeah, well, no, I'm Foreign Relations. I don't have jurisdiction over the State Department. I'm not a committee that I can call anybody about anything. We actually have committees in the Senate for a reason, subject matter. But here's what I do believe. It's impossible for the president to adequately defend himself unless we know more about why Hunter Biden was why the prosecutor was fired. The president asked the Ukrainian president to look in corruption. Corruption is rampant in the Ukraine. I find it odd that the only person that Joe Biden wanted fired in all of Ukraine was the prosecutor who was investigating a company that his son served on the board. That is very much relevant to the whole quid pro quo allegation against the president. And to me, is there a quid pro quo in place where Joe Biden said, if you don't fire the prosecutor, you get no money, and was one of his motives to protect his son? Somebody has to look at that, and if Adam Schiff will not allow House Republicans to look at that, then I think Senate Republicans need to make sure it is looked at.
I understand, but at the same time, there are similarities here to what we just came off of back in 2016. There are dots to be connected to the way that the president and his entire team was entrapped. Are you going to call anybody? We still have the 2016 issue, which your colleagues on the left refused to look at. We know there was wrongdoing in terms of the FISA court, in terms of framing campaign people from the Trump campaign. Are you going to look into this? Are you going to call anybody regarding the 2016 origins of the Russia probe into your committee to testify?
Yes, ma'am. The person who's been assigned to look into whether or not the FISA warrant was properly obtained and whether or not the FISA court was basically defrauded is Mr. Horowitz, the Inspector General of the Department of Justice. He's been looking at this for over a year. He's also looking at whether or not the counterintelligence investigation of the Trump campaign was legitimate. He's looking at it internally. John Durham is looking at the possibility of criminality when it comes to obtaining the warrant, criminality when it comes to the counterintelligence investigation. My goal is to provide oversight. I promise you that Mr. Horowitz will come before the Judiciary Committee when his report is complete and testify in public under oath as to what happened. Then I will start connecting the dots. If the whistleblower is in fact part of the team that tried to get a warrant illegally in 2016, I think that would be a stunning revelation and may explain their motives in terms of why they filed the complaint to begin with.
Very important commentary that you're making right now. Our viewers are frustrated with this IG report, Senator. Where is it?
I get it.
When is it coming out? You met with AG Barr. What can you tell us about this investigation? Do you think he's going to get to the bottom of who framed Donald Trump?
Well, I think Horowitz is going to give us a stunning report about the system being off the rails. I'm not going to prejudge it. I talked to Barr Wednesday. The declassification issue has been resolved. Most of it's going to be declassified. I want the public to look at what happened, not trust my rendition of what happened. Let's declassify all the applications for the warrants. Let's put it all out there to see, all the 302s, so you can make your own decision if Christopher Steele had a bias against Trump, if he was an unreliable person when it came to obtaining a warrant against the Trump campaign. My goal is transparency, but I'm going to do this right. Horowitz is somebody outside of politics. He's going to testify first. He's going to have the time and the space to make the report the way he feels it needs to be made, and he'll come before the American people and tell the story the way he needs to tell it. Once he tells that story, then I'll follow up and start connecting the dots to the whistleblower if there is any dots to be connected.
You know, I mean, the committee, does your committee require the Democrats to agree to any subpoena? Because this whole process of having to check with Adam Schiff is another thing that my viewers are outraged about. Tell me about that. Do you need a requirement from Adam Schiff or the Democrats to actually get a subpoena and bring somebody down?
The Senate is a collaborative process, but I think I could do it by majority vote if I had to. But rather than me going out subpoenaing people based on news reports, I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. I'm going to allow the guy who was tasked with looking into whether or not there was corruption regarding the FISA court and the intelligence community abused the Trump campaign through a counterintelligence investigation. I'm going to hear from him first. I'm going to build what I do off of Horowitz's investigation rather than just running wild myself.
Yeah.
That way, I think it has legitimacy. I think most Americans don't trust Schiff. There's a partisan atmosphere about this investigation. I think the House is going to flip to the Republican Party because most people would rather solve problems than have yet another investigation of Donald Trump being driven by Adam Schiff.
Yep.
So what I'm going to do in the Senate is I'm going to do it the right way.
All right. Stay with us, Senator, because I want to ask you about this report that senators are going to be tuning out.